to this little tutorial where I hope to show how to weave a shell of a two-frequency vector equilibrium, but not like this. This is not a shell, these are individual layers, more like this. I showed this in a recent video and demonstrated how, because there's an opening here which is currently plugged by a pair of beads, one can get the interior spheres, the interior beads, out of this effectively shell basket. Again, this is a two-frequency. We could look into the three-frequency too. I got some of those around. But the principle is all the same. I've also just uploaded a wordless going through this, weaving this one-frequency shell, which in this case I put a bead in too, because yeah, that's a dozen minutes and I don't go into why I do what I do. Similarly, if we took out everything from the inside of this, then the shell itself, if it was all closed in terms of having all of the beads, not like the one where I left one out for the basket, but if all of them are there, then this is like the same two-frequency shell, and it does move because unless the beads are triangulated and closest drawn, they of course do move. Good. So those are just examples. Perhaps to make that point with the moving parts a little more clear, even compare this. Oh, it's a bit old now. It has had a bit of wear, but this is basically a what is it? A four-frequency squaric. So these are the beads, the spheres that one would fit in that 5x5 beads, 4x4 frequency. And if we see, this is without structural integrity, so it's a shapeshifter just as this. And then the same kinds of beads, if they are drawn into triangles, still move and shape, but they do not have that same freedom of movement like these do. Good. Also, in the same vein, by the same principle that we're going to be using to make this shell, one can also do other shapes. Like this is a corner of an 8-ice, so this basket is basically half an 8-ice, and I think this was 6-frequency. So this is a dozen frequency, the big 8-ice. Yeah, just examples of what is possible with this kind of technique. The technique itself, I've got a how do you say, a playlist on my YouTube channel where I go through a few more things with that. I call that sewing of spheres, right? Where I call this weaving of space-time structures. That's a different arrangement of the bars in the beads, basically, right? Where does the whole point in relation to the structure that we're drawing. And I call this particular technique sewing of spheres because it really is adding one sphere to another. But before we continue, I'm gonna have to let out the cat. Up. Okay, the cat is out. Let's continue. Alright, so I was gonna go through this bead by bead, and all I'd need to do this is the beads, of course, and To get the 2-frequency VE shell, we are going to need a frequency which is 2 to the second power, which is 4, times 10, which is 40, plus 2, which is 42. Except we are going to leave this one out of that, so it's 41. 42 is 3.5 dozen, by the way. Alright, so we need those beads. We need the string to draw it with, and I've decided to use this wool thread for now. I think I want to do this with bigger beads this time. The bigger beads have a bigger hole, so I can use a bigger string, and perhaps that helps with legibility of it on the screen. Good, so I'm gonna just take some length of that string. I haven't really measured it, but I suppose it's gonna be, this is probably maybe 2 fathom, 2 times the length of my arms, or maybe more than that. And the other tool I'm gonna need is my trusted needles. Wonder why they call them needles, if they are all we need to do the thing. Also, I learned technology has the same root as textile and texture and text itself, which is fabric, which is the weave. Technology was the art of the weave in a way, which is nice, you know. I can relate to that. And it goes to show why Bucky's insistence that everything in the universe is technology isn't so far-stretched. Alright, what did I do? I've added my needles to my both ends of my string. Now, just if you don't have these needles yet, and you haven't seen me make them in any of the other videos, it's a very simple thing. I'm using a fine kind of wire, which needs to be at least twice as long as the thing that we want to thread our string through, plus some, so maybe 2.5 times, and then fold it in half and take the 2 ends of the wire and twist them together very, 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 very finely. And then we have this kind of needle, which is basically that loop of wire. One end of it is the fold, which is the tip, and the other end is the twist, which is where the string is gonna be stuck. Like it really likes to bite into the string, which is perfect. Also, it doesn't come with any knots, which I used to do before, which would be more difficult to get through things, let's say. Alright, so let's get going. We're gonna go one by one and see how far we take it now. So this is really very repetitive once we know what we're doing. We're adding 1 bead, so that's on the string. Let's add another one, and through the second one we go one way with one end of the string and the other way with the other end of the string. And then I'm gonna hold my both ends of the string together. I put them apart so I don't, you know, lose my ends. And then I'm drawing the 1 bead that we passed both ways towards the center of our length of string, where we're gonna meet the other one. So here, and I really hope I'm not doing all of this completely out of frame. That would be unfortunate. I'm sorry. I'm such a fool. Anyway, here's our first pair of spheres. Right. So notice that in this way we're getting the connection not drawn directly between the spheres as we would for the weaving here, where we're adding beads along the length of the string to get our vectors. But in this case, we are creating two lines of connection, and then there's the two precessional passings through the beads, and these two lines of connection are going to grow into our pair of membranes, the inside and the outside respectively. So in this case the orientation of the beads is going to be between inside and outside of the structure that we're weaving. Alright, because we want to do a two-frequency, I like to start on this with a triangle. So let's first do a two-frequency triangle. That is six spheres. So we've got 2, and we've got a few more to add, I guess. So, but that's a good start. Alright, now we have 2, let's get 3, go both ways through, pass it along. This length of string is long. I wouldn't recommend that to beginners. Best go short and then add string as needed. But anyways, here's 3, and we can put them like a triangle already. Connect that, or let's just keep them as a line and then take the next one and put it here and then here and then here, so we get to 6. So let's add one more. Yeah, that's number 4. And for what we're doing now, let's have number 4 be the one that folds back in between number 3 and 2, like so, and then we'll add this one to the second one. So the way that I'm doing this is that I hold one end of the line tense with my one hand, and then I am free to use the other end of the line and basically pick up the bead that I want to pick up. So I'm gonna go through that one, and then back through the one that we've just been in, where the other end of the line comes out of. And there's our first triangle. Let's add another sphere. So again, we pass it one way and the other. And we place that next to the others here, and again I'm gonna hold on with my left hand under tension, and the right hand picks up first this bead and back through the one that we have under tension, and then the other one. Right, so we already see that we can really just stitch these beads together like we want to, and depending on the kinds of relationships that we draw, the thing will turn out one way or another, and it will behave one way or another. Okay, so this is 5, let's do one more, and then it appears I need to get the cat back in. So one more. Like that. Again, adding is going both ways through, and then let me keep the sides as I had them. Doesn't really matter yet, but anyways, here I've got one hand under tension. This end is under tension too, and I'm just holding it to the other bead there, and then I'm free to take the playing end of this line in my right hand, as I'm right-handed, and pass it through this bead that I want to attach to, and that's our first two-frequency triangle. So this is going to be one facet eye, so to speak, of our eventual shell membrane. Alright, I think the cat is fine. I'll just go on a bit, because I don't have all day. There's going to be a Zoom call next. I don't even think I can make this before the Zoom call starts, but we'll see. Alright, now that we've got the first eye of this, we're gonna go into the next round here. And the next round after this first eye, let's start with this little triangle here. So we'll add one bead, add another, attach that here, and then go on from there. And we're gonna go around like this. Good. I said we'll add one more. And as before, adding is the same old, pass it with both ends of the line. One back, one forth. You know, in synergetics, every finger points two ways. It's always good to remember. Okay, like that. Let's add one more. Up. Also note that this is one way of doing it. There's countless others. This is a superbly open way of technique in terms of making things, and I have my ways of going around that work out well, but those are by no means the only ways to do it. Alright, here I've added the second one here, and I want to add it to this. Let's do that. I get a tent, keep the tension on my one hand, pick up the bead with the other. There. Okay. That's the first little triangle of the next eye. However, now we get to, if we hold this next to one another, we are here and we're gonna have this one now. And note that that one isn't triangulated. So we add it to this bead where we are, and then we only attach it to this one. We don't omni-triangulate. We could, but then we would get something else out of it, namely, in that case we would work our way towards the shell of a two-frequency dozen 8 eyes, rather than the two-frequency 2 dozen 8 eyes, which is the vector equilibrium. Okay, I'm adding my bead, as I said. Same procedure as every single time. And now, let's talk through that discussion of triangulation once more. We're added to this one. This is what we're tethered to. We won't tether to this one. That would be omni-triangulating it. We'll go to that one instead. Right? So we skip one of them. And by tethering only to this, we're gonna keep one window, squaric window open here. Doesn't need to be a square, right? Again, it's a shapeshifter after all. But that's how we do it. So for the next one is going to be again part of a triangle here, but the connection between that and that is also squaric, so we don't triangulate to this. In other words, let's add one more bead. So, and rather than attaching it to this, we attach it to that one, which is the corner, the next corner of our original two-frequency triangle. And you see that I'm currently working in what appears to be a plane, but in time this will naturally curve and become concave and convex. Okay, see? We're getting our way around. Now we have the first triangle and a little triangle, and then we went through these two with the squaric windows. So this one is like that. belongs to a triangle, so the next bead is going to be triangulated to this and this. So one more bead. And the tension, let's get it close, and as I said, we want to tether that to this one too. Just that the same bead that the bead before was already tethered to. So we got another triangle here. And now we're here again. So the next one is going to be only connected once. So here's the next one way, and the other up. Alright, we won't tether it to this adjacent one, but to that one. And by skipping that one in between, we're working towards what becomes our desired outcome. Alright, see, we've got this one, which is the same as that. So the next one is also not... we'll skip one connection between this and that, add one, and have that attached to it. Oops. Oops. Okay, as I said, skip this, add to that. Which is the third corner of our original two-frequency triangle here. Okay, so we're in the equivalent of this bead. The next one is going to be triangulated to the same as this. So we'll add one. And that one we will tether to the same corner of our original eye triangle, like so. Now it's still flat, but with the last length we're gonna have it go like so, just naturally. We don't even need to force it, it's just gonna draw in that way, because the next bead that we add, like we've been here now, corner of a triangle, and the next bead again will be skipping one. So the next bead coming here won't attach to this but to that one, and you can see that the distance is a little further, so quite organically it will start to curve the shell into concave and convex. So we're adding one more. Hop, have that pick towards the side that we want to go, and we won't weave it to this, we won't sew it to this, but to that one. And then back. Now that's a long distance, and as I pull it, this corner becomes, we now have to do with angular takeout, basically. And this is going to turn into a shell that actually is finite and closes around something. Alright. We're close to close to the other side here, and the next bead actually is already here, right? So we are in this one, currently a bit loose because I lost the tension, and that's the bridge between this bead and that bead. So the next bead we pick up is going to be that one. But before, let's get this one nice and tight. The more tension we can keep in the system over time, the better. Alright, now we're here and we want to catch that one. This one. And I think in this case I'm actually perhaps... Yeah, no, I'm gonna go back through anyways. I could just jump into that with both ends, but never mind. Let's go like this. See how I pull on it and it draws it in? And all of a sudden this becomes of the kind of shape that we want. Right? This is the simple way that the topology of these systems defines the shape. And it's very, very beautiful, and we don't need to know how it's done and what the angle is. We just need to figure what kinds of connections we want, and the rest comes on its own. Okay, I'm gonna take a short break just to check on the time if I am about to miss my zoom or not. But this is already beginning to curve into a hollow, concave, convex, two-frequency VE shell. Okay, well, it's been a little more than I had hoped in time before I could return to this, but here we are. It's been a few days, and our piece has patiently awaited my return. As you can tell, we have arrived with the last bead that we added, basically finished the second layer, the second level of this vector equilibrium two-frequency. So let's just continue from here, shall we? And I hope the light is fine. It's no daylight now, but here we go. Anyways, we are currently sitting in this here bead, which is one of those that are in the centers of the squaric windows, let's say, of this vector equilibrium. So basically, if we're coming from this side here with this, and we're in this layer, at this point we'll go to this bead next, and then take the next round, which is going to be our equator. Cool, let's go. Here's my needle, and the other one. There we go. We add one bead as before. Bead like so. Simple as that. So this one is not triangulated to any of the neighboring spheres of that one, because we're currently in one of the squaric faces, windows. So we'll just add another bead next to this one, and that's going to be more triangulating in time. I mean, this one is also going to triangulate, but into another direction, which we haven't yet arrived at. So here we go, and I'm gonna go maybe that way around. It doesn't really matter. I may have said this before, but this is such a technique that is so so open. There's so many ways to go. What I'm showing is just one that works. Not all of the ways, nor is it the only way, but it is one that works. Okay, so I've got this bead here, and I'll attach it to that, which is one of the one of the edges of the triangular eyes of our structure here. See, so we've got another one of those squaric openings here, and the next bead is going to be nice and omni-triangulated. So we'll add another one. Yep. There. Up. Okay, and this one now will connect to, it's already connected to this, we'll tether it to this one and that one too. And I'm doing this from the inside out right now. Again, this is whatever one prefers, however one wants to hold the thing. That's all fine. I'm tethering to this and back. There. Another little triangle here. And now let's add this one to that one. There. Going through the one that I want to tether to, and then going back through the one that I'm coming from. And that's how it goes, right? Next one, which is going to complete this triangle here. One side and the other. Up. And as we can tell, it takes a connection to this bead. And back through the one we're in. And that's this eye complete. Now we actually have 2 triangular eyes complete. Next up, we'll take care of this squaric window. So there's the next bead here is only connecting to that, and that, and that, and that. Anyways, we'll see. Add another one. Here, there, like so. And again, this one does not connect to this, which would triangulate it, but it's going to connect to that one. To that one. And then back through our current one. See, another squaric and next bead. Now, to just say this quickly about this technique, maybe I said it before, wouldn't hurt if I said it again. It is possible to do all sorts of structures with this. This sort of double membrane is a superbly useful technique to modeling things, but also to make things that one may need for everyday use, like baskets and stuff. And anyone who knows the foundations of synergetics in terms of how topologically we are creating the shapes that we do, this is going to work. Everything that we know about frequency applies, everything we know about angular takeout applies, all of that goes, and we can just take this and make any sorts of structures out of that. Anyways, I'm in this bead, which is the corner of this squaric here. So rather than connecting it to that, we'll only connect to that. And again, if I were to connect all of the, if I had connected all of the beads that are in those squaric windows, so that they were omni-triangulated, we would get the same number of beads to complete this shell, but the shell we get would be a 1,008 eyes 2-frequency rather than the vector equilibrium. They are both the same in some ways, but one is the one that can hold the interior beads or spheres, and the other one cannot for lack of room, but therefore it holds its shape without interior, which is good as well. Alright, we're back at the corner of this triangle here, so the next bead will connect from here, connects to that and that. So it's one of those that we immediately triangulate. So we add a bead here, hop, hop, and then again I'll go through this one and through that one, through this one and back, up. Make sure not to get the line tangled up somewhere else. There's a triangle here, and then to this one. Up and back. Nice. One more bead for the corner of this triangle. And one direction and the other. As I keep saying, you know, in synergetics, what I call the fingers, the vectors between spheres, which are not really the ones that I'm drawing here, although the lines that are drawn here are parallel, if you like, to the vectors. The vectors would be drawn between the centers of the spheres. We're basically drawing the same vectors, but we're doing it on the inside and the outside of the structure, the membrane. And so every finger points two ways, right? So every vector goes two ways. And in this case, it's actually, if you like, four ways, because it's both back and forth on the outside and on the inside as well. Yeah. We're coming around. We're already past the halfway. And the next bead, now we've added this one and we completed this triangle here. So we've got 1, 2, 3 complete triangles. The next two spheres again will be only connected in the squaric. So let's add another. Dip. There. And I'll attach it to this tether and bind. And back again. There. Okay, one more to complete the corner of that squaric. One way and the other. There. Here we connect to this one. Notice this is again the triangle. And go through that and return into the one that we're in. And there. That's good. Now that squaric is complete. And here's some more, and we're getting close to completing this layer. So there's going to be one more here. Let's add that. Go through both ways. Like so. And then connect to this and to that bead. Up and back. And the other one. And back. There. Nice. Okay, cool. Coming along well. Next one here is gonna connect both to this one and to that one, and with that we'll have our complete equator. So one and the other. Pull that tight. Connect to this bead. There. like so, completing that triangle, and then connect to this one as well. And I'll just go through it and back. Alright. Sweet. With that we have reached we've completed the equator. We're coming along well, and I'll be taking a short little break. Sorry about that. Sometimes nature calls. Here we go. We've just completed the equator, which is actually a complete hex, which is one of the beauties of this vector equilibrium that we're working with. And by the way, we could just see if we can get this filled with some beads, which is what we're doing after all. This is going to be effectively something like a basket for these beads. And after all, when we're done with it, it should hold basically what amounts to a one frequency vector equilibrium inside. So there's going to be a dozen around one spheres, with that being the nucleus. And we can see that once these are in, and currently it's not closed, so I'm losing a bit of tension while I'm fiddling around in here. But when these are all in there, the entire structure becomes omnitriangulated and then very, very, very much stable. Cool? Alright, let's continue. The next round, the next layer is going to be like this one. We're past the equator, so it's mirrored like that, except what we need to make sure is that when we have here an eye, a triangle, on this side here is going to have a squaric. Where we have a squaric on this side here, this side is going to have a triangle, right? It's complementary. They go one this, one that. Unless, like, if we weren't doing that, we wouldn't get a vector equilibrium, but a polarized version of it, which breaks some of the symmetries in the IVM, and it's a whole story. It's a beautiful thing as well, but we're not going for that now. So what we're doing is, next we're gonna add these two beads here, well, this one first, and triangulate. So see, this squaric is surrounded by triangles all around, so we're gonna do that here as well. Oh, and then once we get to the next squaric, we're gonna do a little bit something else than what we would do if we were just going to do the full membrane. Namely, we're gonna leave out a bead so that we get our opening for our basket. But we're not there yet. We're here in this one, and I want to connect it to this, to the side of the squaric, and we'll get, hopla here, we get a bit of a little triangle there. Who would have thought? Okay, next bead. My cat sitting there very begruntled because she wants out, but I've set up the camera tripod against the window, so poor thing. Alright, we've got this one, and it's going to connect to both this bead and to that bead. So let's go one and back. Ah, okay, see, and then to this one too, and back again. All right, that's nice, coming along well. Okay, so the next one it would seem like one goes here, but actually what we've done here is not going to be coplanar with that square. It's going to turn in a little bit like this. So the next bead that would come here, that would be one of the squarics again, right? And it would be one of the interior of the squaric, which is the same bead that we want to leave out so we get a gap in the end for us to put in the beads, right? So we'll skip this, which is going to break our pattern a little bit, and I hope you... Oh, you know what? Let's do that on the end here. Let's first go around and then have that be the last. That's better. So we keep with the pattern for as long as we can before we start fiddling around with it. So let's just add another bead here. See, I'm making this up as I go along. There. Added that bead. And then this one does not connect to this, but to that. Again, it's connecting to the central bead along the edge of this triangle here, which leaves one of the connections out here, which is then gonna turn into a square once we pull it all in, right? Right now it's being drawn close to this, so this is all trying to flatten out. That's not what it really is, it's just something it can do, basically, right? This is because we're doing a shell of a VE, which is not gonna be omnitriangulated. It's a shapeshifter. It's not one single defined shape as such, but one that can transform a bit within bounds. Alright, we added another bead, and that's going to connect to this one, which is the corner of our triangle there. So we go through that and back. Like so. Cool. Notice though that this one here is actually gonna go draw over all the way to this bead, because this one here is the equivalent to that one. See, it's connected to this corner of a triangle, just like that one is connected to this corner of a triangle. And then the next one it's connected to this one, that, which is the middle of the squaric side, which is this one. Alright, so we've got this one in place, we've connected it to the corner of this triangle, and the next one we connected to is this. Let's do that. There, and then back. And when I draw this in, it's already gonna really help with the shape of the hole to become a little more defined as the one that we want. So, like this. Now we're in this bead, and the next one is going to sit here and connect to both of these. 1 and 2. And then stitch it to this bead. I'm really hoping that all of this shows up on the camera at all, in such a way that one can follow along. I don't know that, I'm just hoping. And then I'm tethering it into this one too. Like so. Okay, so that's, see, that's this little, it's going to be a triangle too, as you can tell. And as before I said, we have a squaric here, so there's a triangle here. We have a triangle here, so this side is going to be a squaric. Alright, so the next bead we'll add and I might have to add some string soon enough. Maybe let the cat out after all. Then she's gonna sit in the window and it's gonna be all cold. That's gonna suck. Let's not do that now. Let's just hear her cry. Alright, we're here. We're not going to attach to this because we're in a squaric, so we only attach to this central bead of this triangle edge. Like that. Okay, and then the next one, same story. We'll add one more. Whoop. Up. Up. Okay. Now, from here, we go not through this one, but through that one, the corner of that triangle. Like that. Okay. Coming along nicely. I'm running out of string, so I'm gonna have to change that and add more length to my line. And this is probably, thinking about you on the other side of this video, you probably have had this already happen to you, so I don't know how you solved it, unless you first watched the video, saw me how to do it, and then did the same. The way that I do this is I'm taking a length, and I don't know, I'm gonna go with perhaps another 2 or 3 fathoms, just because it's, for me personally, it's more easy to work with a longer line, even though, you know, that is easier to entangle and whatever, but I'm used to that, I'm well practiced. Whereas if I took only short pieces, I would have to do the knotting all the time. Alright, so I got my length of string. I'm gonna take off one of the needles here, put the string here, and what I do to tie them together is a particular knot which is called a sheet bend. It's a bend which is how to bind 2 pieces of string or line or rope together. And this one goes, I'm just gonna do it quickly. For anyone interested to know how to do this, there's also tutorials on that particular thing in YouTube. I'll just put the end of what is my standing line, which is the one that's coming from the structure. I'm gonna put that across the new end of the new line here, and then do this kind of move. I heard someone call it like an ignition switch. So now the end that I've put across is this one. I'm gonna go behind the new line and then take the end here and put it through, back through that loop, that eye that we've done there, from the top through, like this. And this is a superb knot, not only because there's a little triangle in it, but also it's a perfect knot for what we're doing, because we can pull on this direction here, the new direction, without having to worry about this coming undone. But when we get to it and we want to have this knot be hidden inside of the beads rather than show up outside, we can pull on the other end here. This is the standing end, right? And we can tell them apart because one end of the line is coming out at a perpendicular angle and the other one is basically parallel to where it comes in. And that's the one, if we pull on these two, the knot capsizes and then it can be moved along, which helps us to get it into a place where then when we capsize it back and lock it back in place, that position we can define perfectly so that we can place it in a position where it's going to end up inside of a bead rather than outside. Okay, and then we have the other end of the line. Of course I could have one end of the string and add one end of line to that, and then have another end of line, added to the other side. But what I do is I take the two ends of the new line and attach them to the two ends of the old line, like so. This is the same sheet bend, just quickly done. Tack. And now I've added this whole loop. I'm gonna go to the halfway point of that, break the string here, and then here's my two fresh ends that I can put into the needles again. Up. There's one. And there's the other, like so. Cool. And we're back at the weave, or is it sewing? Again, I'm calling this, I like to call this sewing beads because it's more like stitching one to the other. All right, let's see where we are. We are currently sitting in this corner here, in this edge, in this bead. And we've just come through one of the squaric sides. So this bead is also gonna attach to this one, right? See, so we have a triangle here and we're gonna have a triangle on this side. Cool. So just as before, same old. We'll go through the bead that we want to tether to. There's going to be our knot, pop, and then back through the bead that we're in. There, and pull, and it's drawing into shape. How sweet is that? Okay, next bead. And we're getting closer to the gap that we're gonna leave, but we're not yet there. And the other way. See, now I have a long ass line again. Hop, here we go. This one now is in this position and it's gonna tether to this one and that one. Meow. Meow, meow. To this one. And back. Here, and then to that one. Here. And back. And this is actually now the position that I spoke about with that, the situation with that knot. If I pull very much on this side, we can see that it just so shows up on this side. We don't want that. We want it to sit inside of that bead. So we're going to pull it back a little. And as I said before, our sheet bend has one end come out at a perpendicular precessional angle, and the other one is coming out in parallel with what it goes into. And this is where we take these two sides, the ones that are parallel, and we pull them so that the knot capsizes. And I want it to sit a little further in the direction that I'm drawing from, so that it's gonna sit inside of that bead, like that, and capsized back. And now if I pull on it, it should be, seated well inside of that bead rather than on any one of its outsides. Cool, cool. All right. And you know what? We've come all around now to where the next bead here should be the one that is sitting in the center of that squaric, which is the one that we want to leave out so we get our gap for the end. Right, to fill in the beads once we're there. So we're not gonna put one here. we're gonna go actually and return the way that we came from in the next layer. And I'm gonna switch my sides here because, well, I'm personally right-handed, so you know, I have ways in which I go one way rather than the other, and I'm just gonna go this way. You can do what you feel like, but we're gonna go back, and I'm actually now gonna work from the outside in. So the next bead I'll attach both directions. Meow. Poor cat. Negligence. Here. Cool. That's gonna be the corner of our triangle here. So we'll attach it to this bead. There. Oh, this is actually gonna be much easier probably for you to see what I do, because I'm pointing at the bead and I can go through it right away, and we go back through this one rather than having to switch it from inside to outside all the time. Cool, that's that one. Now the next one is going to connect to this. Here, go through one way and the other. Up. And we're gonna see where we put this knot. It may just be perfect. Well, I would say, judging by this, by the looks of this, I would say it's gonna take a little longer. It's better to have it be a little further out. So we'll capsize the sheet bend, move it a bit, and capsize it back, lock it, and now go through that bead. Where here we go through this one. Up. And that sheet bend. Ha! It's too long. I should have left it where it was. Let's pull it back, capsize again, and put it back to where it was. Lock it. And see again, pull on this. Yeah, that's better. And back through, up, back through this one. Cool. The next one is gonna be connecting to this and also that. We go through one way and through the other. Okay, here we are, and we'll connect to this and that, to this, and back, and then through that, and back again. You're gonna notice at around this time it's gonna be a little less easy to actually reach into the shell that we're doing, because the opening gets smaller and smaller. But don't worry, if need be, one can help oneself with a piece of pliers, a pair of pliers, to catch the needle once it needs to, you know. But the beauty of these needles of wires is that I can shape them and give them a direction before I feed them through something, so that I can have it steer out on the other end in a way that is helpful. Cool. Next bead. The next one is going to sit here and it's going to connect to this one. So one more. Oops. There. Hop. And we lost our needle. No problem. Let's draw this in. And then attach the needle again. Meow. Okay. Up. This one attaches to that. And back. Okay, cool. And one more, which is going to be the corner of this triangle. Pull that tight, and then we'll connect to both this and that to complete this eye. She does not understand why I do not obey her. Poor cat. Okay, and back. And then this and back. So, let's see where we are, shall we? It would seem like we are almost done. We've got the opening here where we'll leave out one bead, and then all the rest is there except for one bead here. So that's the last one we'll do. And then we'll fix up this, with that one we'll fix up this the connections inside of this triangle. So let's add one more bead. Going one way and the other. Och, Katze, be cool, just a little longer. Okay, that one, see? And that one will connect to this, which is the other corner of the triangle, and then also to these two. And I'm gonna use one of these two connections to be the last one where I put the knot to complete the thing, because I rather wanted to, or maybe I put the knot here perhaps, because I would rather not have the final knot be on the edge of what I'm doing right now, just in case, you know, that may be a place where there's more wear and tear. Alright, so let's do the following. We'll keep this under tension, and I'll first attach this bead. Let's see, I'm gonna go from the inside, there, and back through the one that we're in. Make sure not to make a knot into my line here. Cool. Now we'll go, and how do we do this? Oh, Katze. Let's see. We want to complete this whole thing. So let's just go from this being the active bead. Catch up one of these two that are still missing, and I'll just pick this one for no good reason, and back to the one that I'm in. Okay, now with that move what I make sure is that I've been drawing the connection on both inside and outside, because it is easy now that I'm not looking on the inside to miss one of those connections, right? Now we'll do end in this one here, so I'll take both ends of my line through that one. I'll first take the inside one, take it out here, and then take the outside one, take it in through there, like that. Pull on both, and now there's one last connection, and I'm gonna take my inside string and get it out of here so that I can do the knot on the outside. I can't be bothered with doing this knot on the inside where it would be well hidden, but it's also almost impossible to reach and even tie the knot, and more or less, even less so to tighten it up. So here we are, final piece. We'll connect these two on the outside, but with our knot. And the knot that I use for this is called reef knot, otherwise known as a square knot, but you know, I'm not a fan of squares, so I'm gonna go call it the reef knot. So the first move here is just an overhand between the two, like this. And now you can see this line is coming out that way, and this line is coming out that way. Same line. The two ends are coming out those ways. And when I do the second knot like this, just return. So I'm gonna make sure that the one that comes from this side is coming over the other. If I was not making sure of that, I would get what is called a granny knot rather than a reef knot. So this is the reef knot, and it's currently not particularly taut, but that's the beauty of this one, because we can capsize it, just like we did with the sheet bend. If I pull on one end, the knot will flip over, and then it can slide on the other end. And once I get it all tight, I can pull on both ends and get it into balance. And then, like that, it's complete. Last thing to do is to clean up a bit, and first put away the two ends of the line. And before I go through, I would just get this end, which is coming out on that side of the knot, through the bead where the string comes out of. But before I do that, I'm just going to pass under a couple of the lines that come out of that very bead, because then when I pull on this a bit, I'm going to have this be you know, this line, when it passes through the bead, it's going to wind itself around the other passes that already went through there, which is going to help it to be a little more secure in there, and not just be this short end of line that's just going in there and you know, can just as well come out again. Same on the other side. I'm gonna go through this bead, but before that I'm gonna pass under a few of these earlier passes that jump into that bead. Oi, Katze! She's really not feeling it. Okay, here, pull that nice and tight, and then go dive through that bead. Like that. Okay, cool. That's that. And now we can just clean it up by cutting off all the excess strings. So those are the two that we've just passed in, and I'm gonna try to not cut any of the other strings that run around in there. I really wouldn't want that. I'm only cutting the ones that come out like this. And then you see we've got these two tails of the sheet bend that we did before, and I'll make sure I cut those two close enough to the bead that they don't show up anymore, but again, make sure not to cut any of the other lines there. Cool, and that's that. Now we've got the whole thing, and we can actually see there's an opening here. We can fill it up. And I'll show you one last thing as we do that. It's actually this way. That's better. Yep. Let's add our beads. It should hold 1,001. Let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 1, for... too dark, probably. I don't know what the camera sees. I'm not looking at it. 2 more, so that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, a dozen, and there's room for 1 more, plus the one that is missing in the outer shell here. So here's what we'll do. We'll take 2 beads and just sew them together, one and the other. Oh, Katze. And you know what? I'm gonna take 2 passes through the 2 because it's easier then to put them under tension. Up. Oi. So. Okay, so here's 2. And we'll tie those off. Up. Cool. Again, I'm using the reef knot because I can tie it and then put in the tension by capsizing one way, capsizing the other, drawing out the slack. And with this one, how do we do this? Let's try this one. I haven't done it this way with the other here before. I used a second string, but because we already have the 2 ends of the string coming out, let's do the following. The knot is currently here, and I've put one end of the line through the adjacent bead. Now what I want to do is I want to get that knot to be sitting inside of that bead. So let me move these beads around the loop, basically. Now it's in there. Nice. And I'm gonna take these 2 ends and tie, oh, Katze, tie a sheet band here. So this line, this loop here, is gonna help us to pull out our plug if we need to. There. Let's cut that off. Up. And now we have a plug, a pair of beads with a loop on it. And when we put this in for the last one of the interior here, because you can see perhaps that there's still one missing, we'll put in one, and our plug here is going to be the one on the outside, on that exterior shell, to complete that. And that's it. That's how one makes a, in this case, 2-frequency vector equilibrium shell as a basket, so that we can put in the beads that belong inside or take them out if we want to. And the same technique can be used for 3-frequency or anything past that point if one has enough beads and time and string and line. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope I'm going to be able to edit this all together in some way. And I hope that this helps with, you know, everyone trying this on their own, because it's well worth to know how to do and then to practice and get one's hands on some of these beautiful structures. Cool. I hope you enjoyed that. Have a good one. Talk to you soon, and salam and free kinship earth. Peace.